3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? You're watching another episode of Ash on Comics. My name is Ash, and today's comic we're going to be reviewing is Geiger, #1. This is the book by Geoff Johns and Gary Frank. You may know Geoff Johns. He was the big shot over at DC until 2018 when he stepped down. A lot of people didn't know that he stepped down because he kept doing comics for a while. I think is up to most recently the 3 Jokers. Everything Geoff Johns did at DC was pretty much gold. He was the golden boy of DC. And I really, really miss what DC was like when he was in charge creatively. I don't think there's anyone in any recent years that can compare to Geoff Johns' vision. And I mean from a mile high view, that big wide view of it, the overarching, all-encompassing, not like writing an individual story. There's probably writers out there that you like better. Certainly I have. Geoff Johns doesn't write all my favorite stuff, but everything he writes is just really good, and he just seems to really get DC. So anyways, he's been doing freelance stuff for DC for several years after leaving. And, I'm grateful for that. Now it looks like DC, after the acquisition by AT&T, is completely done with all the talent. They're pulling a Marvel and saying, we're going for Tumblr writers and artists. So Geoff Johns and Gary Frank got the memo, and they're like, all right, time to start doing the creator-owned stuff. And here we got Geiger. I've been waiting for this for a while. Full disclosure, I'm a fan of Geoff Johns, one of my favorite creators in the business today. Like I said, I absolutely loved his stuff at DC. I don't know what his independent stuff's gonna be like. I don't know if he's ever done an independent book before. Gary Frank, someone I think's okay. I like him. He's fine. He was good for things like Doomsday Clock. But I'm not necessarily a mega fan of his. He's just a good, solid artist. So, transparency out of the way. Let's get into this comic. All right, so here's, you can see the creative team. It's a pretty cool little credits page. I still don't know why you need a full page for credits, but I will say this. If you have the full book in front of you, or if you're going to pick it up, you will be impressed. It is a thick book. I believe it's only 32 pages. Only 32 compared to the 20 pages that is the typical. But it's $3.99, and the paper quality is thick. The cover, it just feels nice in your hands. I have to give props to Geoff and Gary. Produced a quality product on the production side. Now let's talk about the actual interiors. So the book is a sort of futuristic, near future. There's a essentially a World War III. They call it the Unknown War, which is kind of cool. I'm glad they didn't just use World War III like this is the typical trick. It's the Unknown War. So a lot of people, the survivors, don't know what caused it because there's no one to really put the pieces together. It happens in 2030, so it's the near future. And we come across these 2 guys here. They're in hazmat suits. They're doing some sort of investigations. You can see the Geiger counter, fitting of the name Geiger. And they're about to get some shut-eye. They're talking about how there's like monsters in the wasteland and stuff like that. And they're talking about this mysterious man who can walk in the wastes without a suit. And he's got various names: Joe Glow, the Man of Mass Destruction, the Walking Bomb, the Meltdown Man. And one decides to tell the story to the other so they can stay awake. And that's where we pick up. His name was Tariq Geiger, and everything he did, good and bad, was for family. Get this nice zoom out page, and boom, I mean, Geoff Johns doesn't waste any time getting the story going, and we kick off into the past. So presumably, well, the past for that. This is 2030 here. The war is about to start. We see the news, a bunch of different newscast stuff, blurbs of what's going on. And this main character here you see on the screen is Tariq. I'm presumably he's Middle Eastern with a name like Tariq. Geiger is German. Maybe he's mixed blood, German, Middle Eastern. I don't know. Not really important. And he's got his family. He's got a shelter. And he's like, let's get in. Boom, boom. We got plenty. We're all going to be safe. The pace of the story is just moving on, not really wasting any time. We get a quick little plot hook here. Oh, no, the dog. Dad, the dog. Right? So the dog's barking. And so the dad's going to go save the dog. We see that the dog is barking at, looks like some missile in the sky. And he's going to save the dog. And boom, gets shot in the leg. And who is it? Record scratch. Okay. I'm going to let you soak in this panel here. This bothered me. I'm going to be truthful to you. Some of you, this isn't going to bother at all. Some of you, it's going to bother you that I'm bothered by it. And you're going to roll your eyes and be like, oh, Ash, get over it, blah, 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 whatever. You're listening to me to hear my perspective. I'm not trying to tell you how to think. What I'm trying to say is, hopefully you're watching videos like mine with an open mind, and you're wanting to hear views that don't necessarily align with your own. Hopefully you're not a person who just wants an echo chamber. I may be right, I may be wrong. That's not the point. The point is to just hear how other people see things and inform your own opinions. But I'm a person, as if you watch my videos and you followed me for any time, you know that I keep up in current events. I can be a bit political sometimes, and I have my opinions about some of the BS that's going on in the world. Now, when I look at these two characters, I immediately was like, oh my God, no, you didn't. You didn't. Now, some of you might be going, I don't know, what are you even getting on about, Ash? If these don't look familiar to you, if you don't follow what's going on in the world, you may not. It may not bother you because you don't see the connection. And then maybe that's good, but I do. This is the McCloskeys. Who are the McCloskeys, Ash? These are the McCloskeys, the St. Louis couple that Black Lives Matter protesters broke into their property and marched and threatened death to them, and they showed up on their steps with guns to basically be like, get the hell out of here, and then were framed by the media to be racist and hate black people, and their guns were taken, and the attorney general, or was the district attorney, I think, anyway, Kim Gardner was her name, basically was caught. They had messed with the evidence. This pistol you see that the Mrs. McCloskey is using, it's not even a functional pistol, but they actually they tore it apart and put it back together so it would function. So because if it doesn't function, it qualifies differently legally as whether a deadly weapon if you're pointing a gun at something. Anyways, so there's a whole big conspiracy nonsense behind this thing. Anyways, that's not what's important. What is important is that you brought the current world events into the book, and we got to see these two. And you say, well, Ash, they're not exactly the same. No, of course they're not exactly the same. I mean, the McCloskeys are lawyers. You could be smart enough not to get sued for using their likeness in instant defamation, but it's so close. The weapons are the same. She's using a pistol. He's using an AR-15. They're rich, of course, driving a Mercedes. The likenesses are so close. And here's the thing. You could have done something different. You could have made them Mexican or black. Except you know that they couldn't. Because doing that would immediately show like, oh my God, look at your painting. And that's my point. This is done to paint. So I don't know necessarily 100% sure that you're trying to make the McCloskeys. I don't know if Geoff Johns wrote in the script, hey, 2 white rich people show up and they shoot. And then Gary Frank was like, oh, I know exactly what to do. Maybe it's his subconscious. Maybe he wasn't even, I don't know. But I do know that if your intent is not to do this, if I was writing the story or drawing the story, I'd be like, look, let's make sure that this doesn't look like these two so that people don't get the wrong opinion. I would be working hard to differentiate, and just because this works as a story feature of people coming and shooting the main character in the leg. It's pretty horrific. This is what people would do in a panic. People are not nice. Just please don't throw the current events into the book like this. That bothers me. And you can say, well, Ash, maybe they didn't. I go, well, my point is don't make me think you're even throwing current events in the book, right? I don't want to even have to think. And comics today it's so prolific in comics to do this. I mean, you just see the recent Captain America by Ta-Nehisi Coates, where he's made Red Skull quoting Jordan Peterson. He's become basically Jordan Peterson in an obvious effort to try to say, look, Jordan Peterson is a real-life Nazi. It's stupid. It's terrible. Good writers don't need to do this. Geoff Johns is a good writer. So moving on, I'm not going to stick with this. None of this really matters. Tariq tells his wife to close the door so they can't get in and take their bunker. And, this woman, she's evil as F. Are you trying to say that this woman was that evil? Because that's what I get. She shoots the dog. I mean, come on. It's just, I don't want to think this way. I just want to think a fictional character was evil. I know I'm sticking on that too long. They all get vaporized. And we move on to 20 years later. So we see some scientists look like they're investigating some of the scene of the wasteland, some bunkers. They're exploring, and they come across this bunker. And it's not obvious at first, at least it wasn't to me, but those little cubes that are on top, those are all crushed cars. And we get to see Geiger, the man that the book is titled after. He's alive, and look, he can survive in the wasteland without a suit. And of course, he got superpowers, because this wouldn't be a comic book without people with superpowers. Not true, but at least I like to believe that's true. So he's telling him to get off his land and stuff. There's some conflict ensues. We get to see Geiger with his powers. Looks pretty cool. He's got this pet dog with 2 heads, which is pretty awesome in its own way. But none of this is very dramatic. It's more of just some scenes that don't really matter. We get to go back home where he's got a bunch of stored canned beans and he's eating beans for dinner. Look, he's crossing off the days. And we get a sense of Geiger's loneliness as you see him go back to the bunker that he left so many years ago. It's been 20 years. And his family's presumably still inside. We see this little flashback panel here. Dad. He says, I know you can't hear me. And so that's kind of an interesting mystery. 20 years, family's been locked inside this bunker. Like, is it really... Holy cow. Are they dead? I don't know what's going on. He can't go inside. He's waiting until the world's safe or what have you. And then the final part of the book, we get introduced to essentially this world's King Joffrey, this boy king who they haven't really established why he's able to rule things, why people listen to him. I think in a world like this, this guy would just kill him and just be moving on. I don't understand why he has power. So hopefully future stories will explain that. I'm not going to critique this right now because I don't have all the answers right now, it doesn't mean it's a bad story. But it does make me question, why does this kid have any sort of authority? I do think it's also interesting that they play off that he's in Vegas. He's got this hotel called the Camelot, which is really a stand-in for the Excalibur. And it's not a real castle, but in this world it would be a castle. And yeah, that's where you have it. So that's kind of where it ends. There's not a lot of story here. And I say that not necessarily in a bad meaning. This is a very much a setup story. This is the first chapter. It's like the first couple, if you're reading a novel, this would be like the first couple of pages of a novel. It's all building to something, we can tell. Geoff Johns is one of those writers that I absolutely trust. I know this is going to build to something. I remember, one of the last books I read, Doomsday Clock. It took a while for that book to really build into what it was, but by the time it did, it was all worth it. And I definitely absolutely enjoyed every part of the reading of this book. Even the parts that I kind of bitched about with the McCloskeys, I just thought it was unnecessary, but it was still good. Like, it was a necessary part. The reason I bitched about it was because it was so good. I thought that took away from it. We get a couple of like little tidbits here, some little advertisements, some like classy, the old 60s style, advertisements. If you've seen games like Fallout, whatever, we're famous for doing this sort of thing. I like this little map at the end. It shows the strip. So obviously these are all fictitious. Hotels are not going to use the real ones because I'm sure probably get sued. But whatever. That's typical comic stuff. So we have the Camelot. We get Nero's instead of little Caesars. That's kind of fun. But also here's the photographs. This looks kind of like a who's who of the power figures that are in this future wasteland world. We got Karloff, was it the Organ People Alliance? We got the King. The Prince is king? What happened to the old king? Where's the queen? Well, that's a good mystery. We got Bonnie Borden, Smart and Dangerous, Nero, Safari. It used to be Safari Bill, now it's Safari Bob, I guess. Milky Way, the craziest of them all, and then Goldbeard. So presumably these are going to be some of the antagonists for our hero Geiger. Don't really know, but it gives us something to think about. And I'm sure as we see these characters appear in the story, we'll kind of be clued in a little bit, like, oh, it's this guy. I very much like this, but from a critical standpoint, I'm gonna have to give this like 3 stars, only because I feel like there's not a lot here. And 3, it's strong. I want to give it 4. Now I'm hedging my bets. I feel that the narrative is not very strong yet. It's a lot of just world building. Doesn't really get anywhere. And I don't really want to fault it for that. That would be 1 or 2 stars. But I don't want to praise it yet either. 3 stars is good. It's what you're getting your money's worth. That's what 3 stars is to me. You're getting your money's worth, but no more. And for $3.99, you're getting... It's added to my pull list. So if 3 stars doesn't sell you, that should. I expect future issues will be better. And I expect that the final result will look back, the sum of the parts will be even greater if I know anything about Geoff Johns. But I think this first issue is not going to wow a lot of people. Temper your expectations. And hopefully this video was valuable to you. Let me know in the comments down below if you read this, if you liked it. Did you like it better than me? Did you hate it? Did I talk you into trying it out? I do think you should try it out. And I think $3.99 is a fair price. And, as always, #readgoodcomics. See you next time.